over the years in India, people have commonly called for moving to a two-party system. Shashi Tharoor, one of our more famous names on the international stage, has often said India ought to be presidential and have a two-party system, because it would lead to a more clear alternation of power, and because it lends itself to something. I think around that, there's often this big conversation about why prefer one system over another, and the idea is broadly that a two-party system encourages moves to the center rather than moves to the polls. And I think what we see in the Trump era is that it can do the opposite, where the leader has moved to the poll and dragged that base along with him, and it's not happening sufficiently, at least with the left. So the left is then, or the Democrats are then being pulled towards the center as the Republicans have successfully moved to the far right. And yeah, it makes me think, if you didn't have a two-party system, whether the Republican Party would have split up into multiple parties under the Trump era.
It's a great question. I mean, look, we don't know, right? But I do think that your point is a great one, which is that, when Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, says things like, we want a strong Republican Party, there are always people in the Democratic Party who will say, like, no, we don't, right? Like, no, we want to beat them. But I hear what she's saying, which is that actually it's not good to have one party that's still running as though this is a democratic republic, and one party one party where the leader is saying, maybe I'll try to get people who don't vote for me deported. Like, this is actually not that's not healthy for the democratic process, or even for the political process, because you're right, you have one party that's sort of stuck trying to uphold this thing, and another party that's so far gone, but you're still running against it because they're the opposition. So would it have broken apart? Would it have broken apart if it were a Republican? Would it have broken apart if we were a parliamentary system? I think the question that I think about is, would it have happened in the first place if we were a parliamentary system? And listen, I think that you can look at countries at systems in Europe, at developments in Europe, and say, yes, it would have, because the center right party would have tried to win the far right, extreme right, xenophobic right votes, and either they would have lost to it or they would have worked that into their own platform. But I don't know that Trump himself gets this empowered, right? I don't know that we have Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia, going on TV and saying he never said that he was going to use, like, the power of the state to go after people who didn't vote for him, when he literally, the quote was read to him. If you have a system where the president or the head of the party or whoever the candidate is not so powerful.
If I can add a counterpoint there, conversely, sorry, Tom, just very quickly, conversely, my gut, unconsidered response, just as we were talking here, is not that Trump is unlikely, because I think we've seen Trump variants in many parliamentary democracies around the world, but that the Democratic Party is unlikely, that more likely that the Democratic Party would have been a split party, partly because of factionalism often on the left, but also because, whatever they're called now, red state Democrats or that kind of thing. And then the progressive left, the democratic socialists in other countries, would simply have not been in the same party. And they were more likely, I think, given how successful Trump has at been taking the base with him, one can also imagine a world where actually, yes, the right would have remained reasonably solid, and it would have been the left that would have splintered.